One good or bad decision can change the trajectory of your business. But most business owners know it's rarely that simple. Behind every growth season, pivot, setback, and breakthrough are decisions that carry real weight. Some move you forward, some teach you hard lessons, but all of them shape the kind of business owner and the business that you ultimately build. I'm your host, Jennifer Koch, a profit and growth advisor who has been building and operating profitable businesses for 25 years. Today, I'm going to share what I have learned that led me to create a decision-making framework that I use with my clients today. I'm also joined today by Dr. Carrie Holland, owner of FitLife. She opens up about the decision to leave practicing medicine and how she's created a business dedicating to helping us get strong inside and out, as well as to create habits for business success. I'm also joined by Brooke Koeninger, owner of Scale with Clarity. She left a very successful corporate career to start a business as a fractional CFO. She helps business owners navigate their numbers. But what she might tell you today is going to surprise you because she shares about using data to make decisions is a little different than your typical CFO. Together, we brought an honest conversation to the table. Our lived experiences, encouragement for anyone carrying the weight of any type of decision you're making in your business today. Our stories will inspire you, challenge you, and remind you that you are not alone as you navigate your own entrepreneurial journey. I invite you to listen in. Welcome to Main Street Success Stories. I'm your host, Jennifer Koch, entrepreneur, business coach, and founder of Next Wave Business Coaching. My first business I opened 2 days before giving birth to my second daughter. But then I grew it for 20 years. I grew it from a local bakery into a national brand and eventually sold it for a profit. I know firsthand how tough the odds can be. Only 1 out of 2 small businesses make it to year 5. That's why I'm passionate about helping entrepreneurs change those statistics through coaching, mentoring, and this podcast, where I share real stories of others, their success, their struggle, their mindset shifts, their fears, and lots of wins along the way. Because none of us are alone in this journey of entrepreneurship, and I want to make sure that you have the support you need. My goal is simple: to inspire you, motivate you, and show you there's a path to building a profitable business. So let's dive into the next episode of Main Street Success Stories. Welcome to today. I am so excited to have 2 really established, honored guests. I'm so honored. I have Brooke with me with Scale with Clarity. She helps you with financials. And I have Carrie Holland with Fit for Life, where she just really helps you build a strong mindset and a fit life. And ladies, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thanks
for having us.
Having us.
I'm really excited.
So what I wanted to talk about today is really just kind of our path to get to where we are today. We know that came with a lot of decisions. Some were really good, some were not so good. And what we've learned along the way and what I've helped people with is really how do we make smarter strategic decisions so that we can build our business profitably, because that's my passion, so that 10 years from now, you're still standing if you choose to be, right? Mm-hmm. And there's so much that comes into every decision that we make. And I will tell you that before I taught this, I lived it. Yeah. You know, I owned a business for over 20 years. And there's one day that really stands out to me. And it was a day my husband and I were in the car driving with our 2 daughters to go away for the weekend to Wisconsin Dells. We were going to take them on a weekend trip. Life was great. So I thought, we're driving along, loving life. And all of a sudden my cell phone rang. It was my manager. And she said to me, really, like just kind of that, our paychecks are bouncing. Mm. And it was this gut punch moment because the irony of it is our revenue was really good. Sales were up. But when I look back at that moment, I was borrowing from tomorrow's revenue to pay for today's business. And then to make matters worse, we didn't have cash reserves, which, Brooke, I know you're probably cringing thinking about that.
Let me just jump in.
We didn't have an emergency fund. We literally pulled over to the small bank in the middle of Wisconsin somewhere, took out a cash advance on our credit cards to put money in our checking account to pay for employees' paychecks. So to me, that was kind of this moment that I think it sticks out to me because it was very humbling. It was very hard. And I remember after that, looking back at my husband and saying, don't worry, I got this. I'll hustle harder on Monday. I'm going to go get some more clients. We're going to get some more business. Don't worry, I got this. And so when I think back, that really kind of changed the way I was making decisions, because really at that time, avoiding a decision is still a decision. And so, when I think about how we operate, especially year 3, 4, 5, we've built something, we've got some revenue coming in, we've got some clients, we've got some success. Well, then we kind of outgrow that stage of our business. And I know for a lot of us, especially women, and let me know if you guys think this is true, that, we make decisions from stress. We're in the moment, quick stress, making a decision. We make decisions from fear. Like, oh, what if this doesn't work? I better go try this too. Or overwhelm, because it's funny. There's 4 stages of owning a business. And I'm talking about how you lead, how you manage. And when you first start, you're the solo practitioner. You are the solo entrepreneur, and you're the octopus, I call it. You got 8 arms.
Yep.
And every arm is juggling something. And some of those arms might be juggling kids or juggling elderly parents. Like, we're not just juggling business, we're juggling everything. And what happens is we start to become exhausted. And so when we're tired, we do just react. Our decisions become reactions. So instead of clarity, instead of data, instead of support, we just hustle, push through it.
Yep.
Would you guys agree with that? Has either one of you felt that?
I have so many thoughts, Jen. How much time do you have on this? I'll keep it short, Carrie, because I'm sure you have some, but yes.
Oh, no.
Yes. And I think so many things. So Forbes, step back a second. Forbes, I think like 3 weeks ago, came out with some stats, and it said, and it was based on like LinkedIn data or whatever, that about 40% of new entrepreneurs are women now. So we see this rise, which is great. And that is my passion. But to your point, I think what I see, at least in my world with me and my clients, is exactly that. I think women in general are the caretakers, you're the moms, you get in this like reactive mode, you're growing more oftentimes than just your business. And so it is reflected a lot of times in your actions in your business too. So I see that same trajectory, like you've said, you're the solopreneur, you get used to just like, I can do this, I'm doing everything. But some things naturally fall through the cracks, and one of them is the cash flow. And I like to say that specifically at that pivot point with my clients, I'm like, there's 2 things that keep them from really diving into what is my cash, making these like what I call CEO decisions. And one is this fear of like, I don't know numbers. And that we can get all into, and just, why that shouldn't be scary. And it's just another data point. But the second is this guilt around, I should have done it earlier. I should have why is this, the paychecks bouncing now? And I always like to say, like, that is the natural evolution. Yeah, you don't want to get into that. And it's the worst, like, gut crunching feeling, whatever it may be, like you said, you feel. But that is the pivot point when you say, okay, if I'm going to be the real CEO of my business and put on that hat and say, now is the time that I'm going to bring in help. And you shouldn't have to be doing everything, and you shouldn't be the expert in everything. So it is this awareness of, okay, how do I adjust for that too? So exactly the story you've told, every one of my clients has gone through that point. And yes, you can get ahead of it a little bit, but you have the octopus you're handling 15 or 20 things. So you've just got to pick what's right, what's the biggest problem now. And then when that becomes it, then you address it then. And you shouldn't have to do everything yourself or be the expert. So there's no guilt or shame around that.
Right. Absolutely. Brooke, I know. So Brooke, first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself,
Yes.
What you do and how you help women entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And your clients.
So Brooke Koeninger, I'm a fractional CFO. I sometimes feel like that terminology is like off-putting a little bit. It feels like very, again, like numbers, feels like, okay, there's this like, I don't need a CFO, but I work with small service-based businesses, oftentimes with a small team, 5 or less, and they're in the growth stage. And they're oftentimes at this point, kind of like you talked about their top line's growing. They are ready to say, I want to invest in my next employee, or I think I want to put money into the business, but I'm not paying myself enough. My cash flow isn't really consistent. I don't know what I can afford. And that's oftentimes they bring me in. And it is not it doesn't necessarily have to be this long-term thing, but it's getting clarity around like, what do I see over the next 6-9 months in terms of cash flow? And then you feel real, like with that black and white data, those decisions, even if you're like further away than you want, they become easier. And clarity obviously is my business skill with clarity. It's just, you make decisions with real clarity on what you have and what you can't. And it really kind of eliminates what I've seen is this churn you can oftentimes get, like, should I or shouldn't I, or am I making the right decisions? And it can really kind of bring it down. Like I said, it's not, what's the saying? It's not simple, but it's easy, or it's not, like It
Right.
can be straightforward. It doesn't mean that it's like an easy thing to have to do, but it can be really straightforward.
So that's one of, I walk my clients through a decision-making framework, and one of them is we have to use the data. And obviously back in my year 4 when employee paychecks bounced, I wasn't using the data. I was just using sales, the top line number, but I wasn't really using all of the data. We can get really in the weeds of all the data, but it's so important.
Yes.
And then Carrie, I would love to bring you into this conversation because I think what happens is when we have something like that happen to us, even it doesn't even have to be that big. I mean, we are making decisions every day. In fact, here's a fun fact. I read that we as humans are making 30,000 decisions every day. Some of those are so like, am I having a super sandwich for lunch? Well, then put yourself in a pair of entrepreneur shoes and think of all the decisions that you're making and how they carry weight. And some of them are little, but some of them aren't so little. And when we run into like a roadblock or it maybe isn't going as we expected, what I see happen a lot is self-doubt starts to come in. And then we sit there and we procrastinate. We avoid. And so now we're just in the stage of waiting. So Carrie, first of all, please introduce yourself. Tell us about your story and who you are. And then what are your thoughts around how do we overcome this self-doubt, procrastination, even perfectionism? I see that a lot in entrepreneurs. We're afraid to put ourselves out there because of what others might say or think.
Absolutely. I mean, even in my own world, in my own life, even becoming the person I am now in my career, I had to get over a lot of that self-doubt, and that kind of ties directly to my story. So just about me, I'm Carrie. I'm a family physician, and a few years into my practice, about a decade into my practice, I decided this is not it. I'd always thought that becoming a physician was going to be my finish line. And when I got there and realized, oh God, this isn't it for me, there was a lot of self-doubt. And a lot of spinning, which led me to do absolutely nothing for years. And so the whole time I just thought, well, if I just grind long enough until my financial planner tells me I can retire, I'll be good. But that approach didn't work. And eventually I got to a point where I felt that I had to do something. And so bit by bit, I built a different career. I started out as a personal trainer. I literally trained people down the street from the clinic where I saw patients. And sometimes my own patients would see me at the Y in my like gym shorts and t-shirt, helping people with their deadlifts. And they're like, that Dr. Holland. And that was me. And that one thing led to another. The personal training led to a health coach certification, and that led to a life coach certification. And there's lots of pieces that I put together to what I do now. So now I am a coach and I help professional women take care of themselves by building strong habits. My 3 pillars are eating, moving, and most importantly, thinking. So the women that I work with, they have checked all the boxes. They are movers, they are shakers, they are entrepreneurs, they are physicians, they're high stakes jobs. And they work really hard at the expense of themselves. And so what we do is we insert themselves back into their very busy lives. And oftentimes that comes through things like eating and exercise. But underneath all of that, of course, is the foundation of thinking and taking care of yourself. To your original point about self-doubt and perfectionism and all the things, I find there is a common underlying factor, and that is how we feel. So I learned this a long time ago from one of my own coaches, and I'll just share it here. Everything we do or don't do is because of how we think it's going to make us feel, right? So when we're talking about big stakes decisions in our businesses, lots of money on the line, people's jobs on the line, there's some fear there. And there's also obviously a fear of failure. Often it's what are we going to feel when we do fail? Because it's not a matter of if, right? It's when. We all 3 of us, and I'm sure anybody listening to this, we've all experienced some failure. And what happens is that can be a reason to pivot and move, or it can be a reason to stand down and quit, right? And often what happens is, how do you take care of yourself when you do fail, right? Because most of us make it mean that we're failures, right? Like there's a difference between failing and being a failure. But often we make it mean we are the failures. And so what I do is help you realize that actually, no, that's very different. And so there's a lot of mindset work, self-compassion, leaving the perfectionism, getting rid of all or nothing thinking. I shouldn't even say getting rid of, but managing all or nothing thinking, because those things all come up, right? They're going to come up. And as long as we own a business, those things are going to happen. So it's not about avoiding them. It's not about avoiding failure. It's not about avoiding imperfection. It's how do you manage yourself through it so that you can keep going.
Yep. I love it.
Oh my
Sorry,
God,
that was a lot.
Well, no, that is so powerful and so impactful, because when you think about, you touched on so many elements of why only 1 out of 2 businesses make it 5 years.
Yep.
Part of that is the decisions we are making is the root of everything. But like you just said, what is fueling those decisions? And fear of failure is huge. And also, I think as women, we carry a lot of fear of what other people are going to think.
Yeah.
And are we pleasing them? Think about how many times have you had somebody give an opinion about your business or tell you what you should be doing, and they're not even entrepreneurs. They don't even have the whole big picture. And what do we do with that? We internalize it and we think, oh my gosh, we're not doing enough. We need to do more. Oh my gosh, we better pivot. And Brooke, you and I have talked about this a few times and I see this a lot too, where we pivot or stop before the breakthrough happens.
Yep.
And Carrie, you really alluded to that, is like, what is driving that? And I love how you said it's really about how we think it's going to make us feel before we even experience it.
I mean, you said it. The women who succeed aren't necessarily more talented, more this, more that, but they are generally more willing to tolerate imperfection, tolerate failure, tolerate all of those things, right? And that is a skill set. Like, you have to learn to take care of yourself through that so you can stand up and do it again tomorrow. Yeah. It's the same thing in fitness. It's the same thing in if you want to lose weight. Nutrition. It's so funny because there's so many parallels between business and fitness, building a business and fitness. This is it. You have to be willing to tolerate the imperfection, tolerating failure, tolerating missing all the things, and starting over again, getting up every day, putting in your reps, doing it over and over again. Same thing.
It's so crazy. I say the same thing too, because I got into working out recently or taking care of my body better. And it's this exact like metaphor for when you work out, you don't necessarily feel good in the moment, but it's like, on the other side, it's good for you. It's going to feel better. And I'm thinking like, as I'm on the treadmill, I'm like, this is the worst 20 minutes of my life right now. Like, this is horrible, 40, whatever. But I'm like, I always go right to business. I'm like, what is the thing right now that is feeling like I shouldn't do it, but I know on the other side, and we're not taught that that's not failure, that's growth. That's, like, even though it feels bad, that's growth. And it's like trying to change those neurons in my brain to be like, it's so exactly like you said, it's like a mindset thing, but it kind of comes easier maybe because we've always been taught like working out is good and eating healthy is good, even if in the moment, but we're not really taught that on the business side. Like, you just think it should be easy, or if you're good at it, it's just going to come naturally. And that's not the case at all.
And it's not. And like both fitness and building a business, there's no get rich quick. There's no lose 20 pounds overnight. There's no shortcut. Become a bodybuilder in a day. There's no shortcut. No. And so how do we decide every day to stay in the game and to take that step? What is fueling us? So from a business standpoint, it's really hard for us to, especially overachievers, see what we have accomplished because we're always looking to the next thing and we're always comparing ourselves. And we're making so many decisions reactively because of maybe a comment somebody said to us or because of what happened like today. So we'll be real transparent here. This was supposed to be on LinkedIn Live and recorded as a podcast. Well, for whatever reason, LinkedIn Live didn't work for us today. So we had to pivot. We had to adapt. We had to tolerate the technology not working.
Yep.
And we're recording here instead. And so that can be something that can derail people. Somebody quitting on you, like a staff member giving in their notice can derail you. Losing a client can derail you. These are all things where, I know at the beginning, we have a lot of grit, we have a lot of perseverance, we have a lot of passion for our business, but over time we start to kind of wear thin a little bit.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about the world that we live in now that we're building a business. Let's kind of transition a little bit. We live in a world full of more information than we can possibly humanly process. Yeah. We have AI at our fingertips. We have all these podcasts, webinars, teachings, books, everything. And while that's great, and I love having access to that, I also think as a human running a business, it's too much. It's overwhelming. And, I love AI. It's a great tool, but every idea I put in there, they tell me it's the best idea ever. And I'm thinking, okay, really? It's really that great of an idea? Or am I really supposed to implement every single one of these ideas?
Your biggest cheerleader, but yeah.
Yeah. So how do we discern what's good for us? So Brooke, let's go back to you. And, one of the pillars of making a good decision is data. And I know you kind of alluded to it before, but, like for instance, let's use an example that came up the other day. A client wants to invest in some Google ads. Well, investing in Google ads is a long game. It's not cheap. And you have to kind of really think about, what am I going to gain? What's the return on this investment? But it just, to her, it felt like, oh, if I do this, I'm doing something.
Yep.
I'm doing something to get more
Yep.
clients. So how would you guide somebody through a decision like that? Let's just keep it simple math. It's going to cost you $1,000 a month, and maybe your client
I'm
pays you
actually going to
300.
step out a little bit from math. And sorry if this is not the direction you want me to go to. We can
No,
turn
this
back
is
to there.
great.
But every one of my clients, all of these decisions come back to, what is your goals personally? Why are you in this business? And I'll say, for me personally, it is, you go on the highs and lows of life and business. And when you're in the lows, or somebody quits, like oftentimes for a lot of my clients, they were former corporate. And that is the plan B. Do I want to go back and work for someone else? And if we get back to the why, like one of my clients, she went into business and she has this business plan, and she's like, I promised my kids I'd pay for their college. Like, that is her thing, and very like heart driven, like that is my why. And so when it comes to these decisions, all of them are assumptions, and we can talk about like how we build the business plan around everything and the KPIs that you should track. But it comes down to like, what is your why? Because some businesses may want to grow 20% because I want to retire in 10 years and I want to travel with my husband wherever. Another might be like, I want flexibility in a lifestyle that I can be home with my young kids. I only want to have to work 5 hours a day, whatever it may be. So if we come back to the why, what is the money that you need personally to support that why? What is the business that you really want to live right now? And what is that lifestyle? That is how we make the decisions. It has to come from a starting point of there, because when we say, do you invest in Google Ads? I want to say, why? Do you want more revenue coming in? And do you have the employees to support it? And that becomes a little bit more work. But hey, if your goal is to grow this business as fast as you can and exit in 5 years, then that is where maybe we should look at that. If your goal is to be at home more, so it starts with the why. It starts with, what is the type of business and lifestyle you want? And then we make those decisions based on that. But underlying it is the passion, is the reason. And then we build numbers and data around that to say, okay, this is now a clarifying reason to say yes or no based on what you've said the life you want to live is. Kind of took it a different way, but.
Well, no, I love that you took it a different way, because that's what I'm here to build, is a holistic approach to building a business.
Yes.
And you're right. A lot of us do get caught up in the day-to-day, the old saying, you can't read the label when you're inside the jar. And that's why it's important to surround yourself with people that have been there, done that, and have different perspectives. So you are still focused on the numbers, but you're looking at it from a different angle. Yeah. And I really appreciate and respect that approach that you bring to it.
Thank you. Can I add one more thing too? Because
yeah, please.
Besides knowing your why, it's the community. It's absolutely the community, because these dips that you go in, I always say the why is internal. The why is like, you are the only one that can say, why did you go into business? What is the lifestyle that you want to live? What does the future look like for you? And you can't find that anywhere else. So you've got to define that internally. And then when you're working through that, you are naturally going to have these lows like we talked about, but having the community around you that's doing the same thing. You're not looking for the answers for them. You're looking for the support. You're looking for somebody who's maybe been in that dip before and here's what they've tried. And you're like kind of holding hands together going through it. And that has been the biggest unlock for me. I kept looking for this external, like, give me the framework that's going to grow my business in 10 steps. You see that all over social media. That is not the case in a real sustainable, true business that's growing in alignment with whatever you want to. So that's why I love what you're building, Jen, is this community around it. And then the last thing, sorry to take all of this, is once you define all that, you do know what your 12-month goals are. You can really clear, but I always like to say, like, this is where it gets back to your pivot quickly, is where I've fallen short. And now I see a lot of my clients too, I've learned from this, is you set these 12-month goals. You know what you have to do each day is like, I've got to make the cold calls, or I've got to like manage these employees. Like, you know what the weekly actions are to get to that. And we still keep our head on that 12-month goal. And we just see how far we are from that. And that can kind of burn us out. And I always like to say, you need the 12-month goal or the 5-year goal to figure out what you need to do now. But it's almost like once you figure out those daily, weekly, monthly actions, forget the goal, heads down, stay consistent for the next 3 to 4 months before you look up and see how far you've come, because it can derail you to say the day-to-day stuff. You don't make as much, like, you don't see the progress as often as if you just stick with what you are, and 4 months down the road, you'll surprise yourself at how far you can come than what you had originally thought.
And you touch on something that a lot of business owners say is, I didn't understand when I got into business what a roller coaster it is.
Yes.
And it is. It's high highs, we're riding the highs, and then whoo, lows. And that's when that self-doubt and all that kind of second guessing, did I make the right decision? I mean, trust me, I had a lot of moments over the 20 years of owning my service-based bakery. What the heck did I do?
Yeah.
We have those moments. So Carrie, let's talk about, Brooke, I love how you said, understand your why. Where are you trying to go?
Yeah.
Make sure the data supports it. I know you and I are huge on profit.
Yep.
Revenue
Yes.
is the vanity number.
Yes.
Profit is what pays you every month. So then, Carrie, give us some thoughts around, how do we show up every day when maybe it's been a week since you've had a discovery call with a new client, or maybe you're just struggling with a current client and you're trying to think about what to do. Give us some thoughts about, how do we create these habits and really avoid the procrastination of the hard stuff? Because I know I do it. And that's why I've always had a coach, is because I'm going to pick and choose the things I like to do. I'm going to avoid the things that I don't want to do, even though I need to. So any thoughts to help us overcome the procrastination that can really, really kind of hurt the bottom line of a business?
Well, and I think honestly, and there's even articles and books written about this, that procrastination is often perfectionism in disguise, because we procrastinate on the things because we're afraid we're not going to do them correctly or that they're not going to work. So on one hand, it's being willing. Again, I talk a lot about willingness. It's being willing to handle that imperfection and handle that failure if and when it does happen. But then on the flip side, it's also focus. And I mean, Brooke, you're talking about habits and results and all of that. And so one of the concepts that I teach often is you have habit goals and you have result goals. So you may have a business result goal. I want to make this much profit, or I want to do this, that, and the other thing. And those may be things that you have ultimately no full control over, right? But where you do have control are your habit goals, meaning I get up every day and I write my content, or I get up every day and I make 3 phone calls to people, or I reach out to 4 different contacts on LinkedIn, whatever that is. Again, the idea is to make it a habit and make it something that you can do no matter what, because you've got 100% control over whether or not you reach out to somebody on LinkedIn. You have 100% control over whether or not you send out your weekly email newsletter, right?
Yes.
But I get it. It can be hard to do those things repeatedly. Putting it, again, it's just like a bicep curl, putting in those reps. It can be really hard to do that when you're not seeing results immediately. It's okay, I've done my emails. Where are my people? And the idea is, again, it's coming, I mean, stealing some of what Brooke said, it's coming back to your, why are you doing this? Right? For my own example, I produce a weekly podcast. Some weeks the listenership is great. Other weeks it's not. And it doesn't matter, because it does matter, but it doesn't, right? It's a metric. It's a number. I could choose to freak out about it, or I could choose to use that number as data and look at, okay, what are the patterns here? What are the things that people really want to hear? And use that information not to freak out, but to make an evidence-based decision to move forward. So I think there's lots of pieces to this. I think making the habit goals so small that they feel almost insignificant, but they're not, because you keep showing up and doing them every day. Those are the things that really make the difference. But then it's also keeping, I like what Brooke said about keeping that end goal is there, but you kind of put it to the side, because right now I'm going to focus on what's in front of me, and that's writing the stinking email before I talk myself out of it,
I love that. Carrie, sorry to jump in, Jen, but exactly what you
No,
said.
no.
And this is not me. I read it somewhere recently, but I love how you said this. The quote was, you can't control the outcome. What you can control is your actions. And if you trust that the law of averages will play out. So if you continue to do it, you'll have some highs and lows. But at the end of the day, if you continue to do the stuff, it will play out in your favor. And I love that too. So it's focus on your actions, not the outcome.
That is powerful. Yeah, that is a powerful quote.
Yes. Yeah. 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 Yes. So good. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I love it. I call that stacking the wins, which is what I
Yes.
love to take my clients through. You're not going to get from 1 to 100 overnight. We got to stack our wins.
Yes.
Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the decision-making framework is, first of all, how you're showing up as a leader. You know, are you a solo entrepreneur, a business manager, the different layers. We talked about data. We've talked about habits, which kind of falls back into your energy. You know, that's why it's so important to take care of yourself physically, mentally. And then, Brooke, we talked about kind of aligning goals. Talk about something I see often with entrepreneurs when they choose not to do anything. They sit on a decision too long. And what's happening there is we are potentially missing out on an opportunity because we're sitting there just, you know, marinating on it or waiting for the sign or waiting for something to happen. And it really comes down to the risk tolerance. You know, as we're building businesses, we have to do things. Like today was, I guess you could say, a risk trying LinkedIn Live. I'd never done it before. So that's a risk tolerance, right? And so a lot of us struggle with that. I mean, let's back up. I think if you're an entrepreneur somewhere, you're in your DNA, you're wired to be a little bit more of a risk taker, not risk adverse, because it's not a linear path and you're not getting your consistent paycheck and all of those things. But I think sometimes we stay stuck because we're afraid to step out or to take the next step because we're afraid of the risk. And I think, Carrie, you hit on it earlier. That comes down to the feeling and the fear. And we can have all these metrics and all these things that we need in our decision-making framework. But where do you feel when you're making decisions, risk comes into it, or even gut intuition? I mean, I like to say, let's bring it back to the human side of it. There's still some gut intuition, like this feels right. And I don't want people to walk away from this and think, okay, I've got to have all the numbers in place. I have to have the strategy. I have to have my 12-month plan before I can try this because my gut's telling me I should. So any thoughts on that?
Yes.
Brooke, you want to go first? You're nodding your head. So, Brooke.
I mean, for me personally, I'm an open book here, people. Just DM me if you need more details. But yes, so for me, Jen, we were talking about this right before I pushed record. Risk for me has been, I realized I've been in business for myself for 5 years now. I am it's crazy because yes, you said entrepreneurship in and of itself is a risk. So I talked to some people who are like, I could never go build my own business. And that to me didn't feel risky. What I've realized over the last 5 years, and I've told many people this recently, it's been since this year started, I am doing a lot of what I call marketing stuff, like this awareness. I have a podcast, I have a newsletter. No, I am not doing sales. Sales is scary and risky to me. How I define that is the direct outreach to someone. Doesn't necessarily mean cold, but it's just saying, here's what I do. Do you know anyone? You go back to your gut. So a lot of times there's so many decisions to make and you can say, okay, does that feel right or not? If I really think about it, and this has been an evolution for me too, because in my corporate job, I was so not attached to my inner gut and knowing. I was so externally focused. So that has been its own evolution. But for me, knowing I know I need to do this to grow my business or to bring more clients. And you've got it actions I need to take and carry. To your point, I'm it's relatively easy. It's the things that I should do each day, but I'm putting it off and I see the other things that I'm checking off on my to-do list, which is, edit the podcast and write the social media content. And so I realize there's a, to your point, the data around here is showing me that I've put it on my list because I do think that it's important, but I'm like, oh, we'll get to it tomorrow because I got to do these other things. So that's when it shows me I know the thing that I'm putting off. Vice versa, Jen, to your point, the podcast to me though, some people would be like, why are you wasting actually, my husband actually has brought up, what's the ROI on your podcast? Right. And for me, and in finance, I had to sit with it. I'm like, I find so much joy in it. I have these ideas that just come. I have people that I want to talk to. And so that to me, I'm like, that's my gut saying I should continue this. Carried, like we were talking about, it's not the outcome. It's not about the outcome for me. It's do I enjoy this? And does creativity come through that for me? So it's that nuance of knowing this is the thing I should be doing. I'm putting it off for fear versus this is my gut telling me I should keep going with this even when others say not. So it's this nuanced decision-making that it's just a practiced muscle, I think, that gets stronger and stronger, and you realize where you stand on that. So good. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there really is.
Uh, can I just add one more thing, Jen, to
Yeah,
what
I
Carrie
would love
said?
to.
You can edit my words out when you're done.
We're not editing. This is real, raw, and the truth of business.
I like what you said, Carrie, about the like looking back, the laughable like mistakes or just things that you wouldn't do again. And I feel that deeply. And I always think, though, like you don't know looking forward. Jen, you and I have talked about this before. Like you don't know where the path is leading you. But when I look back, I can see exactly like some of those things led me to connections like Jen. Like I would, we invested in, I won't call you, but like we put some money into coaching and did that work out? I
Mhm.
don't know, but I met amazing people. Or the times that didn't work out and whatever investments and software, whatever it may be. But I look at it also, I'm like, I wouldn't have learned that to then help my clients too. Like I'm doing this, like, like now I'm talking to you from the trenches, not from somebody who just thinks that, like I've done this stuff and tried it out. And so it is that flip. I'm trying, and this isn't equated to me. This is Scott Grates, who Jen, you and I know, but I think he was the one that said like, when I was talking to him, I was like, if I can make it a goal to get more no's, like that actually turns the no or turns the failure into, oh, okay, so I'm like getting this goal, which means I'm actually pushing myself past where I have before. I can turn it into maybe a sort of a good thing. It's still like scary and hard for me. But anyways, Carrie, you saying that too, like I feel that deeply of like, God, if I just hadn't done this, like where would I be 5 years in now? But I'm like, I
Right.
would have been somewhere totally different maybe if I hadn't learned that by then. So.
What I think I've loved about this conversation is a few things, is that we're really sharing with people that it's okay if it didn't work out the way you thought it was going to. It's okay if you screw up. Obviously, we're trying to help in our role. We're trying to help people not have those expensive mistakes that we had, but that this is just part of getting to know your business better, getting to know yourself better, and also getting to know your clients better. And that's how you build a business that can be standing 20 years from now. We have to realize that it takes showing up every day, and it takes creating new habits every day and skilling up, whether it's in sales or marketing, and delegating. We have to let go a little bit. And so there's nothing like entrepreneurship that stretches you more personally and professionally development than being in the trenches of growing a business. We've all talked about something along the line that we learned because we didn't know, and how we overcame. And I love the word tolerate. It's funny. I love how you use that word, Carrie, because a lot of times we hear perseverance, grit, just keep going, passion, but really it's tolerate. And for me, it's also adapting. Like you have to learn how to adapt when things throw you a curveball. And for many of us that threw in the towel, if so to speak, or it didn't work out for them, you don't want them to feel bad about that. They tried something. They tried something that a lot of people wouldn't try. But I hope that everyone listening today realizes that there was a reason all three of us left corporate. All three of us left a really good jobs. And Carrie, the amount of schooling that it takes to be a physician. So our decision to start a business is a big decision. And when you are faced with these moments where it just feels like you're pushing a boulder uphill, just take a moment and pause and high five yourself that you did it in the first place. You're still here, and to think about your why. I love how you brought that into the conversation, Brooke, because I always say the why is what gets you started. It's the who's that keep you in it long term, but the why is really the root.
Yeah. You got to come back to that. Yeah.
You have to come back to that. And, there's been days when I'm thinking, oh, do I want to keep doing this? But then I think, well, what else would I do?
Yeah.
At this point, I'm not even marketable. I'm not even hireable. Nobody's going to hire me
like
now.
I'm in.
So
I'm burned.
I'm in this.
B. Yeah.
So here we are. So as we wrap this up, tell me about like a who in your life that really kind of helped you in the last 5 to 6 years stay in the game and grow your business. Does anybody stand out? Did anybody have a mentor or a coach or someone that just really kind of inspired them to keep going? I kind of put you on the spot here with this one, but I'm just curious. Mhm. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
We can't.
Yes.
I love that you found that. And I 100% agree. Owning a business can be very lonely, but isolation is a choice.
Yes. I would add, as I'm thinking through this, Jen, it's going to be 3 quick ones. I promise. 3 quick ones. The reason I started my podcast was because I wanted to have conversations with others like you, Jen. You've been on it, but I feel like I've learned something from everyone on there. It's a gluttonous way for me to pull information from whatever every expert that I bring on, and I've learned so much from each of them. And I say that all of them are in the trenches with me, so I love that. But 2 people that I would say are a lot further ahead of me in different aspects. So one is Tara Moore, and Carrie, I love how you work on mindset or whatever. She has a book called Playing Big, and I was in one of her coaching groups, and she really talks about like the inner critic and your inner mentor. And she was the flip for me to really look internally and be like, it's not out there. It's in here. It's like inside, like really thinking about what's stopping me and where do I want to be and what do I want this business to be. So that was one. And the other one from a business perspective is Pia Silva. So she has a book that just came out, but it's called Scale Solo. And that for me too was kind of the one of several people, but the unlock, which I preached and I believed, but seeing someone successful further than me in that was you can grow a business and be solo. That doesn't mean you got to hire a bunch of people. It does not mean you need to be bigger. It means what is it for you? And you can maximize that in a solo business. And I think that's a growing trend as well as people like saying, I don't want to be bigger and more. I want to be the most that I can handle while still having flexibility and stuff. So I loved her kind of business model that she talks about.
It's funny you say that, Brooke, because I've had 2 conversations with women entrepreneurs this past month, and they both have built really good businesses, strong businesses, and they both looked at me and said, I don't know how big I really want to be.
Yeah.
And they, like how you said, that's kind of a trend. And I think it's because it doesn't have to be that anymore.
No.
We have access to be able to serve people differently, especially online in different ways. And you don't have to manage a huge team anymore. And I love that because that's really knowing who you are, getting to the core of really knowing who you are.
Like redefining success for you, releasing the ego. And what does that really look like for you? And it's not always monetary and bigger. I think that's what we've been preached for a long time, like kind of more the masculine energy versus maybe it's flexibility. Maybe it's the ability to travel all the time. Like, what is it for you? I don't know, but it's redefining that, I think.
Yeah, no, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, I just want to thank you both for joining me today. And I want to share that I have created a group called the Focus Growth Collective. And the purpose behind this is it's going to be a virtual group for women entrepreneurs where we're going to talk about business strategy, but we're going to talk about finances. We're going to talk about money mindset. We're going to talk about habits, procrastination, fear, all of those things. Because my goal is to help people build profitable businesses that help them pay themselves well every month and contribute to their family if that's what they choose, and also still be here 10 years from now if that's what they choose as well. And so both of you are going to be joining me in that group as advisors, as guest experts. And I'm just so honored and thankful that you will be bringing your message into the group because it's a conversation that I don't want it to end today. I want the conversation to keep going. So thank you so much for committing to that. And I look forward to learning more from both of you in the future.
Thank you, Jen. This has been such a pleasure. And I'm excited for your group coming up. Yeah.
Thank you so much. If today's conversation resonated with you, if you're ready to build a sustainable, profitable business and you want to learn more about how to implement a decision-making framework, then I invite you into my new program called the Focused Growth Collective. It's a virtual mastermind designed for service-based women entrepreneurs who are in at least year 2 or 3. They're growing their business, but the decisions on their desk are starting to carry some weight, and they want help navigating how to move forward. It's time to take the loneliness out of owning and operating a business. It's time to not be in isolation. We talk about business strategy, but we're going to talk about mindset. We're going to talk about money. We're going to talk about health. Brooke and Carrie are 2 of the advisors that are going to be joining us. You're going to learn a lot about you. You're going to learn a lot about your business, and you're going to have tools to help you continue to move forward. My goal for you is to help you build a business that's profitable, that can pay you well every month, and that is still here 10 years from now, if that's what you choose. If you'd like to learn more about the Focused Growth Collective, please reach out. You can send me a DM, or there's a link in the show notes below. In the meantime, please share this with a business bestie that needs to hear this. We're all thinking of the decision on our desk right now. We're all carrying the mental load of our businesses. Help alleviate some of that for them and realize that they're not alone. Could you please share this episode? Until next time, I keep cheering you on. Keep building your clients, your family, your community feels the impact you're making.